Hi, Steve Stallberg here with monthly painting video number 83, made in Kuala Lumpur, November 2020. This month I'm making my own version of a small part of this illustration here by Wally Wood. Maybe you recognize him as one of the artists who used to work for Mad magazine back in the day. Um, there's lots of fun stuff to see here, but I'm focusing on one of these character interactions, this one here. I'm not going to name the characters here, but suffice to say, I won't be surprised if Patreon emails me in a few days and asks me to take this video down. We'll see. Anyway, so references. Here we have start of photo bashing, which I often start with. You see how I have photo bashed from the previous image that you just saw. I had this leg here. This is a different leg from a different image. This is a different face from a different image. This is not from an image. I think I painted this arm, the bed, the skirt. I just try to. I'm starting to try to add these details here, but the um, the whole thing had a problem. I thought it's following it slavishly and faithfully. I think, which is what I first tried to do, as you see here, with her left leg up. I thought this. It's 2020, we can be a bit sexier than the original, so I reversed it to have her right leg up instead. And so I started sketching. I went back to the drawing board several times and sketched and sketched and sketched. And I'm not going to show the whole process of sketching on this one because it was very long. Just trust me when I say it took me weeks and even months of intermittent work to get to the stage which I will show you next. This one here. This is the final one before I started the inking. On the left here, you can see the previous version before this last one. You can see she looks a bit different. I've extended her torso. I've changed the angle of her, both her upper leg and lower leg here. And I changed her undergarments to maybe more of a period feeling, a bit looser feeling there. Any other changes? Yeah, the breasts are more turned to you. Spine position is like one of the most difficult things. You see the hips here are angled, facing more this way, and here the hips are more realistically facing more up in this direction. If you visualize the hips as a box, the pelvis as a sort of a box shape, you can see here it's kind of twisted and skewed box. It's weird. This pelvis doesn't really work. You have one bony bit here and one bony bit here, but that's skewed. So yeah, this one works better. And then you got to think about how it connects to the spine, which is very important, and the neck. So here it's a little bit like straight this way and then very bent here. I don't know. It's hard to explain. You get a feeling for it when you do a lot of anatomical drawings and sketches, and I may not be the best teacher of this stuff. Go to Proco. Proco. He's really good at anatomy and stuff like that. So that's why I'm sort of shortcutting on the sketching today, and skipping straight to the inking, which you will see here, and the coloring after that. That was just a test stroke, and here is the first strokes. And let me talk about the ink brush now a little bit. I'm tracing on a separate layer, a new layer, empty, blank layer, just a simple normal layer with Lazy Nezumi, which is an app that you can Google. Lazy Nezumi, which means mouse in Japanese. So lazy mouse, basically. Which is I think is $50 or something, and you can get it for Photoshop, and I have it switched on. I think it's let me see. Yeah, it was set to smoothing massive, which is they have all these different choices. They have even more now because I haven't updated this app in a long time. But anyway, the brush is just a very simple round brush with a little bit of pressure sensitivities, so just enough so that you get a smooth ending and a smooth start to every stroke. And let's see the size. I zoom in as close as I can. This one you can see is 100%. I zoomed in 100%, but that'll be different for each person because you should zoom in as close as possible while still fitting the strokes comfortably on the screen. So you can't zoom in to just like half this stroke because then you can't do that stroke smoothly because it's obviously it's outside the screen. So you my screen is small, so and also my document size is fairly small. It's only 2,700 pixels high, so I'm not using an enormous screen and an enormous Wacom or huge 10,000 pixel files or whatever. So you know, this is how I do it. So that's why I'm phrasing it this way. Zoom in as close as possible while still fitting the strokes comfortably on the screen. It sounds obvious, but it's a lot of people want to know all these details, and the details are going to be different for each person. Anyway, vary the thickness a little bit. You'll see here as I keep drawing. You see that how I varied the thickness there on the glove, and here everything is thicker right there. I'll try to go back to that part again. This is the finished piece, finished inking, and you can see the theory behind varying the thicknesses here is inside, the silhouette edge, the edge of the shape, the outer edge should usually be the thickest. The upper edge should usually be slightly thinner than the lower edge, and this is because of an illusion that it makes the thicker line makes it look like there is heavier shadow here, even though there is no shading yet. But our brains tell us that there must be some light hitting here because visually this is a little lighter because there's less black here and there's more black here. That's how it works. And but also inside lines thinner, outside lines thicker. Let's see, anything I've forgotten? Sometimes you can just vary the thickness just for the hell of it because you see it's a big for aesthetic reasons, not for the hell of it, but because our brains like variation, and so it's a little bit thicker here and a little bit thinner here, and that's where the outline bends more, you can have a little bit thinner, and where it doesn't bend that much, you can have it a little bit thicker. These are just guidelines. You don't have to. They're not firm rules. But if I was going to program an AI, I would try to input those rules and then let it go wild. You see, thinner here because this is not an important. This is just a seam, but it's nice to have it there, and also it's very nice to have that much thinner than that. So this creates a nice variation here with these much thinner lines here and this very thick one here. Now there are some styles like that like to vary the thickness a lot, much more than this. Like it would be like 3 times as thick here and like half the thickness here. That kind of smooth variation, like as if you're using a brush. Obviously, that's where it stems from. They use brushes to ink. I've never used brushes to ink, but like some French and Belgian comics, Spirou and Asterix and those guys, they do that. But of course, there's other styles that don't vary the thickness at all, like in some other French and Belgian comics, like Tintin and those ones. But let's continue. I'm going to get some reference here. I got some reference there for that detail on his uniform. And now I'm putting in the colors, the flat colors. Just make a new layer, and underneath the ink, expand it by the amount of pixels you need to expand it to make sure that the edge is running down the center of the black line, and fill it in with the base color. darker. No, don't pick the lightest color that you're going to make. Pick medium or darker, slightly darker than medium. And here I'm making separate layers for skin, separate for top, separate for sleeves, and separate for the dress, and also the underwear. Because these are important parts. But for less important parts, like the bed, that's just going to be one single mass, so to speak, one item, one layer. The hair is also going to be separate. This is just, right now it's included on the skin layer, but yeah, now I'm separating it out. Very rough, laying down color very roughly, laying down the lighting, the shading very roughly. And this is reference for the room. But hold on, let me just finish first about the rough thing that I just mentioned about the paintbrush. The paintbrush is very ordinary. It's just a circular default paintbrush with some pressure sensitivity. That's all. That is the brush that I will continue to use. You'll see now for the bed. You can see the brush strokes here. Very simple. I will after as I develop this, I will smudge these brush strokes together with a smudge brush that I have. It's one of my favorite ways to work. It's avoiding the airbrushed look a little bit, which I hate. I do use the airbrush. You'll see me using it later, but just for tiny touches, like slight accents. And yeah, see here, I smudged that part. Now working on the hair. For hair and metal, it is very nice to use color dodge, or this one here. You can use the brush with color dodge on, or you can use this dodge. Sorry, this dodge tool here. Set to highlight. It gives that metallic look because it gives the highlights a strongly saturated flavor. Now I'm checking. Oh, actually, I'm. Hold on, I gotta pause it here. Yeah, you see, I'm coloring the ink lines here. Okay, I'm gonna check my notes here a bit. Reference, flat in main colors, easily grouped items on one layer, unless smaller parts of an item has a complex outline. Yeah, like the dress, like that I mentioned. And the inked lines. Yeah, it's easy. Just switch on lock transparency and use a dark but saturated color similar to the flat color, in this case red. So dark red for these outlines, also dark red for these outlines, and also dark red for these outlines, because gold skin and these red pants, they're all warm, you know, basic warm color, and that goes well with a dark red outline. It's up to you how bright you want to make it. You can go brighter than this. You can go a stronger, brighter color than this. I stopped here, which is sort of like reddish brown. That's just me. You can go further if you like. And if I hit play again, you'll see I'm going to use a dark blue for the jacket. Here you can see dark blue, coloring the outlines. I find it just easier to do this as a separate stage. Instead of doing this while I'm working, I can just focus on black. Using black as a first stage, it's just easier, you know. I don't have to worry about color while I'm just worrying about the line thickness and the placement of the line, etc., etc. Now I'm going to do the background, the wall. I brought back the reference again for her room, and now I got the reference open to the side here outside this recording area, and I'm just sort of using the similar colors I can see there and putting some stones in the, it's a stone wall. Getting roughly, there's going to be a wooden beam right there. Getting roughly the tone and the colors of the reference in there. A little bit lighter. My view is lighter. I think the reference is darker. And again, it's the same very simple brush I'm using, the round default brush. there's a little bit of airbrush right there. That's that's the limit to what I want to use airbrush for. You'll also see me soon using it on her top here. Here I'm smudging the area there. First laying down a fairly sharp bit of bit of color and then smudging the edges to that so it's not sharp anymore. I'll I'll be smudging this later as well, you'll see a little bit. I like to keep some of the often I like to keep some of the strokes, but not all of them. Like about 50-50 in some cases. On her, on skin, on face and shoulders and thighs, I like to keep that very smooth. So I'll make a stronger effort to get rid of the brush strokes in places like that. Here you see I added a bit of airbrush on her chest there, but I'm going to also go back in after the airbrush and darken, create some more subtle shading here using other brushes. I keep saying, um, I keep repeating myself. I don't like airbrush when it's the only brush used and it's used all over the place and you don't use any masking. Here you can see I used the airbrush with masking. So I masked out his sleeve and then airbrushed behind the sleeve and now I reversed the mask and now I'm airbrushing back onto the bottom part of the sleeve. And now I'm detailing the gold. Not much to explain here. I have all the gold on a locked layer, so it's easy to just, it's like having a mask. It's like having a layer mask. I just don't like using layer masks. And, don't get me started on that subject. I love the way that you can have very WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get in the layer stack in Photoshop if you do it my way. Now, if you have layers, mask layers and adjustment layers and layer masks and all that crap, which I try to avoid like the plague. Personally, I mean, okay, if you really love them, go ahead and use them. But if you're a beginner and you're not sure whether to learn to use that or not, I would say try the simpler method first, which is my way of doing it. You can see here, they're all just like panes of glass, basically. And here I'm switching them on and off to show you which one is which. And you can go through here slower later if you want to see. And name the layers. Immediately you create them, name them so that you have this very simple WYSIWYG, SFW, of course, safe for work, ink, safe for work color. Those are the underwear that she's having. Ink copy, that was just a safety copy I made of the ink before I colored it, just so I could go back to the uncolored version if I needed to be. Here I'm fixing the boot, which is too long. The foot is too long, an anatomical fix here. And I just have to go on to two different layers to move them and retouch them a little bit like this. It's a very quick way of working anyway. And again, what you see is what you get. It's of course I do still end up drawing on the wrong layer, painting on the wrong layer, making mistakes, but it's less this way. For me, it's less mistakes this way. And that's the finished one. Let's see if I did anything in the last stages that is important to point out. No, this is obviously wood, but it's supposed to be wood, but of course it's gray, but it could be, we could pretend that that was painted gray anyway. So uh, maybe it should have been brown is what I'm saying, or slightly more brownish than it is. Yeah, that's it, I think. Yep. Thanks for your support and see you next month.